Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're a resident of Deer Park, LaPorte, or Pasadena, this is really built for you. We're going to drill down into some key intelligence from your local and state governments.
That's right. We've gone through a pretty crucial stack of sources today. It's mostly focused on the Pasadena City Council meeting from November 18th, 2025, and also a big legislative update from State Senator Carol Alvarado.
And our mission here is to pull out the actionable stuff, not just, the headlines. We want you to understand where the money's going, where the friction is, and how you can actually engage.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We'll start hyper-local community wins, some holiday efforts. Then we're going to dive right into the political drama.
Oh, yeah, the lost infrastructure funding.
Right, and the procedural chaos that happened right after. Then we'll zoom out to a massive state update that, it directly impacts your schools, your roads, and even your property taxes.
And we really should start with the good news. It shows where citizen engagement actually got specific, tangible results. It shows that, local pressure can work.
That's the core of it right there. So the council update, it detailed these immediate wins on the north side of Pasadena, where residents had raised some safety concerns.
And they gave specific thanks, right, to Chief Jackson and Officer Robinson.
Yes, for increasing police activity, more patrols in those neighborhoods. It's that kind of follow-through that really builds trust.
And it wasn't just safety. There were infrastructure fixes, too. The kind of things that make daily life just a little bit smoother.
Like the sidewalk improvements on Texas and Harris.
Exactly. Those were confirmed as completed. They seem like small projects, but for accessibility, for quality of life, they're major upgrades.
And here's one I think drivers in Pasadena will be really interested in. That frustrating 200-foot gap on the westbound lane of Thomas Street.
The one between Burl and Tilden.
That's the one. It's finally finished. So now the whole stretch of Thomas, from Red Bluff all the way to Allister, is reportedly in good shape.
Which is huge. That cuts down on wear and tear, commute times, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as we get into the holidays, the sources gave a lot of actionable ways for you to either contribute or, get some help if you need it.
Right. For anyone looking to support their neighbors, there was the Pasadena Food Drive. They were taking canned goods at Campbell Hall.
I think the deadline was the day after the meeting, but they were trying to beat their record from last year. Something like 40,000 pounds of food.
Wow. And for residents who need assistance, the turkey drives were in full swing.
Yeah, Precinct 2 had a big one on Friday, November 21st. At the Faith Christian Center. They had over 400 turkeys.
And Councilman Guerrero, he highlighted his District C giveaway too. Over 100 turkeys there.
What was interesting about that one was the logistics. He mentioned needing an RSVP, which makes sense for quality control.
And he gave shout-outs to the local sponsors. United Providers of Texas, BMS Cat, Big A's Barber Hop, 247 Leak Repair. It really shows it's a partnership,
Yeah.
The city and local businesses.
Right. And then just to round it out, two big community events. The McDonald's Texas Invitational Basketball Tournament was happening.
Which is always huge for the local high schools.
Yeah. That ran Thursday through Saturday.
Right.
And then the Pasadena tree lighting is set for December 5th at 5:30 p.m. right at the library.
Okay, so that's the community roundup. A lot of good stuff happening. But now we have to pivot pretty hard from that to the local political friction.
This is where things get tense.
Yeah, we need to look at how resource allocation becomes a political battleground. And it started with some really bad news for District B.
It really did. Councilwoman Valerio, who represents District B, she opened her remarks by announcing a major setback.
The funding loss.
A significant amount, in her words, of federal funding that was meant for infrastructure projects in her district.
Yeah.
It's just gone, pulled back.
And this wasn't just some note in the budget. This loss immediately created a political situation where she felt she had to act. It directly influenced her vote on the city employee pay raises.
Exactly. She was very clear. She said she supports the employees, supports the idea of cost of living increases, but she argued that under these circumstances, she just couldn't vote yes.
Her argument was that the city should use that money to supplement the lost infrastructure funding in her district.
Right. So it completely reframes the issue. It's not about being against employees. It's about, in her view, responsible resource management when you get hit with a surprise like that.
And what's so fascinating is how that tension immediately spiraled into, procedural chaos.
Total confusion.
When they moved to the final readings for the ordinances on education staff pay, we're talking 2025, 216, 226, 227. The whole discussion just fell apart over parliamentary procedure.
They got stuck on the motion to table. And for anyone listening who isn't, deep into council procedure, a motion to table just means you're delaying the vote, pushing it to a later meeting.
But the confusion was real. You could tell members were genuinely struggling. They weren't sure if a yes vote meant, yes, let's table this, or yes, we approve the pay raise.
Which led to multiple conflicting roll call votes. It was just a mess.
And this procedural failure is, I think, a really key insight. It shows that when priorities clash, in this case, employee pay versus urgent infrastructure needs, the whole process can just seize up.
It really reveals the vulnerability of local policy, doesn't it? Especially when you're depending on state or federal money that can just disappear.
Precisely. And that unpredictability, that really leads us to our next segment. We have to zoom out now because whether you're in Pasadena, Deer Park, or LaPorte, so much of this funding and policy, it starts at the state level.
Senator Carol Alvarado's legislative update is critical here.
Let's start with the big numbers, but really focus on the impact.
Okay, so the state just passed its largest budget ever. We're talking $338 billion for the biennium, and they did it with a $24 billion surplus.
That is a staggering amount of money.
It sets the tone for everything. And the senator, she made a point to stress her support for local control. She mentioned that in past sessions, there have been attempts to, as she put it, short-arm local government.
Basically, centralized power in Austin.
Exactly. But her focus, she said, is on making sure cities like Pasadena keep control over their own resources.
Okay, so let's talk about where some of that money is going. Specific wins for East Harris County.
A huge one for education. $10 million was secured for the Sanjak Center for Biotechnology.
And this isn't just a building. This is about creating career paths, right? High-tech jobs so local students can stay local.
That's the goal. And then in medical research, $30 million was allocated to MD Anderson's Institute for Cell Therapy Discovery and Innovation.
$30 million. I mean, these are investments that really anchor the entire region as a leader in healthcare.
Absolutely. Then you have water and flood mitigation, always a top priority here. Funds were secured for repairs to the Lynchburg pump station, which supplies something like 60% of the Houston area's water. Plus, another $4.3 million for the Gulf Coast Protection District's storm surge barriers.
That work is so critical for protecting the whole coastline.
It is. Now, shifting to transportation and safety, this hits everyone. Texas leads the nation in rail crossings. Over 9,000 of them.
And the most complaints, right?
By far. Over 7,300 complaints, and 21% of those came from first responders. Ambulances, fire trucks, blocked by stopped trains.
It's not just an inconvenience, it's a public safety crisis.
It is. And in response to that tragic death of a Milby High student who was trying to cross blocked tracks, the senator secured $10 million for a pedestrian crosswalk over Galveston Road and Broadway.
A direct, life-saving response to a local tragedy.
Yeah. And on top of that, there's a new $250 million grant program. Cities and counties can now apply for these funds to build grade separations, underpasses, overpasses.
To eliminate those choke points. That is truly massive for traffic and for emergency response times.
Huge. And then there are policy changes affecting every family. Public education got an $8.5 billion investment. $4 billion of that is for across-the-board pay raises.
And not just for teachers.
Right. This covers all public school staff.
Yeah.
Janitors, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, everyone.
Okay, what about the other major policy shifts?
Two big ones. First, bail reform. A new constitutional amendment passed that requires judges to deny bail for certain violent crimes. Murder, aggravated assault, human trafficking. It's a substantial change.
It is. And the other?
Property tax relief. A $51 billion investment. The homestead exemption was increased from $100,000 to $140,000.
And it's even higher for disabled residents or those over 65.
Right. For them, it jumps to $200,000. So the state is using that huge surplus to give some immediate, tangible relief back to property owners.
That's a powerful overview of the resources coming our way. But we have to transition now to the end of that Pasadena Council meeting. The citizens wishing to speak section.
This is where things really exploded.
Yeah, the raw tensions over transparency and the entire structure of governance just came pouring out.
This part of the meeting was really defined by citizens directly challenging the council, challenging the mayor. It revealed some profound discontent.
It started with a citizen named Ty Smith, who was eventually escorted out. He was criticizing the lack of physical fitness requirements for police.
His argument was that it could lead to unnecessary or excessive use of force.
Right. And he also alleged police corruption and was very explicit. He opposed raises for officers and said waste management and janitors should get them instead.
And then the accusations, they just escalated from there. Citizen Stephen Alvarez called the mayor Tyrant Thomas in the public session.
He alleged abuse of power, weaponizing the police department. These are incredibly serious claims to make in a public forum.
And he brought up specific allegations to back it up. He claimed Chief Jackson donated $50,000 to the mayor's campaign and talked about the rehiring of an officer Pletz, who had supposedly been fired for harassing female officers.
He also raised that long-standing allegation that city funding was deliberately pulled from the north side to discourage minority voting.
And it all culminated with Citizen Eric Sanchez. He really brought the focus to transparency and the structure of governance itself.
He demanded the release of Pasadena files related to alleged historical murder cover-ups. He named specific cases, Dangelyn Stevens and Derek Dow.
And here's the structural insight that I think every resident in this area needs to hear. Sanchez pointed out that Pasadena is one of the only cities where council members themselves cannot place an item on the agenda.
He stated it in no uncertain terms. The mayor has absolute control over the agenda. He called it a dictatorship.
And his demand to the council was very tactical. He said, do not vote yes on any new business until those files, that business, is put on the agenda for the public to see.
It's an attempt to literally halt the legislative process, to force transparency.
But then you have this sharp contrast.
A really sharp contrast. Immediately after all of that, citizens like Janet Harris and Shelley Fuller came up.
And they were just there to offer thanks. They brought gifts, pecans, offered prayers for the council.
And that contrast, it just perfectly encapsulates the political climate, doesn't it? This deep division between residents who see the government as corrupt and those who see it as a source of support.
Exactly. You can't really have this discussion without acknowledging that whole spectrum of opinion.
So we've covered a huge range of information today. Everything from, the practical, like turkey drives and road fixes, to high-stakes political drama and multi-million-dollar wins.
The challenge for residents is clear. Your local government directly influences everything. And understanding the mechanics, like the mayor's control over the agenda, or how hard it is to pass a simple pay raise when federal funds get pulled, that's crucial for any effective local action.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, that Citizens Wishing to Speak section, it revealed a profound struggle over power and transparency. It really highlighted the limited leverage the council members themselves have.
Which brings us to a really important question for you, the local resident. Given that the mayor has, as was stated, absolute control over what items make it onto the council agenda, how can residents of Deer Park, LaPorte, and Pasadena who want to see issues like that police audit or the release of those historical files addressed, how can they apply effective public pressure to force that old business onto the floor and actually demand transparency?
That's the challenge of local governance. If you found value in this deep dive into actionable intelligence for local impact, please consider supporting our efforts at thinkandactlocally.com/donate. That link is in the show notes. We hope this has empowered you to think and act locally.